This is the Onion News Network.
There are a lot of very fine first-rate minds in here, but by my experience in this building, none of you have ever been taught the tools by which your mind can work easier on the information that you get from the outside world. We concentrate on ideas and the structure of how people think. So memorizing things and writing it down on a test never happens in here at all. It doesn't happen once. You may have tests, but they won't have anything to do with paper and pencil. And you begin to understand how to use these tools, you will have taken a giant step forward to being a powerful, independent human being.
Hey everybody, this is Brett. Welcome back to School Sucks Podcast. Live, I should say, because this is happening right now. With me in the studio, Osborne. How you doing?
I am doing well. How the hell are you, sir?
I'm great. It's great to be back. It's been a busy week.
It has.
You know,
did you stay up all night watching the election results the other night?
Nope. I turned on the TV for 5 minutes and I said, I've had enough. And I turned it off. It was terrible.
I was angry to discover none of my shows were on.
Yeah. Big deal.
Yes.
You know what I was thinking about today? I was on Facebook. Do you think we should have new names, like new Liberty names, like people get? Like everyone is a Freeman?
You know, before that became the trend, I had thought about changing my name to Freeborn.
Freeborn?
Yeah, instead of Osborne.
Ah.
And then everyone else started doing that, and then it seemed really dumb.
Now, I want to be, but I don't want to have anything that implies freedom, liberty, libertarian in my name.
Right.
I just want a new name, a new and I should have thought of this when I started School Sucks Podcast 3 years ago, I think. Because, boy, you know, when you do something called School Sucks Podcast and people do a Google search for you and Anarchast with Jeff Berwick comes up, not good if you're like, you know, trying to make new business relationships.
That's a good point, sir.
I'm thinking about Butterfield. What do you think of that? Just one name, just Butterfield.
I've known a Butterfield, and that brings up bad memories.
All right, well, I'll back to the drawing board on that. So
now my rapper name is Touchmaster J.
Oh, I like that. That's really nice. I don't have a rapper name. I do have like a 1950s blues alter ego that should be brought into the after show at some point. His name is Sweet Honey Mustard Brown.
All right.
So we could play. Maybe I could. That could just be my new Facebook and podcasting name.
Sure.
So I think I would need a better voice for that. So yeah, you're right about Tuesday. Terrible day, and it really made me feel alone in the world. You know
how so?
Well, I mean, 100 million people voted for Robamney.
Correct.
So
yes, I also felt the feeling of despair. And it wasn't because of anything that's going to happen with the government, just that I know now when I walk down the street, most of the people I look at and come into contact with voted for one of those clowns.
That's true. I mean, 100 million people, that's most adults.
Yeah, I don't want to be around them.
Most, you know, yeah, it's tough. I mean, it is. But, you know, Chris Matthews, one of my favorite television idiots, had this moment last night, and this was kind of accidental, I think, on his part, but he's talking about how proud he is. He jibber-jabbers for about, you know, a minute or so.
He does that a lot.
Right. But then he has this gem. This is after it's been called for Obama. And hold on.
Excellent clip, sir.
Work for him. A good day for America. I'm so glad we had that storm last week.
Wow.
Yeah. How about that?
What a sicko.
Yeah. Now he's with, who's the other one? Maddow?
Yeah.
And she kind of goes, you know, like, you crazy, violent, nitwit a-hole. Like, how could you say it? And he's like, no. Not because people, like, politically, not in the sense of hurting people. Like, there's a difference. But I thought this was like the greatest statement about politics ever.
Yeah, it sums it all up.
I'm glad I got what I want by something bad happening to other people.
Yeah, that's all politics is.
I thought that was beautiful. You know, we're not going to talk about the election because we want to do a productive show. And we have a fantastic guest. My audience knows her because she's been on the show several times before. And I want to welcome her right now, Laurette Lynn, the Unplugged Mom. Laurette, how you doing tonight?
I am doing fantastic. And I'm a little sad because I wanted to talk about the election a little bit.
All right,
but
let's do it.
I love being on this program. I love working with you. I think it's great that when you say Brett and Laurette, it really works. And
Right.
I love making trouble with you, Brett. So,
Well, then you should have an opportunity to vent a little bit about the election.
You are in the driver's seat, ma'am.
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I just got to vent a little,
Sure.
Brett, because there's so many things tied together. First of all, please, you didn't vote, right?
Nope.
Before I go there. Okay. This is actually the first election where I didn't vote at all. The last election, I didn't vote for president, but I did at least go and I voted on local legislation and things that were going on in the community. But I actually stayed away from the voting booth completely this election. So who's ever been trying to talk me into that for the last year and a half? And I've been really resistant. You win. I didn't do it. I couldn't go. Chris Matthews, I watched Chris Matthews. I watched the Democratic pundits, and I've been listening to the Republican pundits. And the next morning, the morning after, of course, Neil Borth was about to have an aneurysm. I thought he was going to kill himself live on the air. And it's like a calamity to me. But at the same time, I don't have that same feeling of dread or that feeling of hopelessness, because it's almost like I was prepared for it. I knew it. I woke up in the morning. I didn't know what was going on the night before. I didn't care. And this is the first time since I've been eligible to vote, since I've been 18 years old, that I actually didn't care. I always cared. And when I woke up in the morning and when I turned on the computer, I saw that Obama won and I said, ugh. And then I realized I would have said, either way.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I was kind of deflated. And, you're seeing all these conversations going on in the social blogosphere and everything else. And I'm thinking, wow, it is what it is. But I almost feel sad for myself that I don't feel more desperate, that I don't feel more hopeless, because I think it's even more sad that I'm almost at the point where I just accepted that this is life. But here's the thing, Brett, and I think you already know this. I think the reason why we're in the position we're in is because people don't know any better. They're lacking the understanding of the process and what it really does. Mm-hmm. And it all comes down to a really bad education. So that's the segue.
Or really good schooling, which is one of the most important distinctions, I think, for us to make. Osborne, we talk about that on this show all the time. Whenever we talk about moving away from the compulsory education system, but it's I just did it. The compulsory schooling system, we are always met with this, well, how would people be educated? They're two very, very different things. And Laurette...
Well, people are not getting educated in school. I have great respect for education. And I think education would be something that everybody would seek, that people naturally seek. Children naturally seek education because they want to learn about their world. The opposite is happening in school, though. People aren't being educated in school. They're not seeking an education in school. They're being programmed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, this is a result. This is the fact that these two idiots were the only two clowns we had to choose from. That's the result of institutionalized schooling.
Yeah, and you were really helpful. Something you said to me a few months back when you said, I won't even use the word homeschooling or unschooling, right? Because that has nothing to do with education. We got to get away from that word schooling. And again, in your book, the term you use, and the book I'm talking about, which I haven't mentioned yet, I showed a screenshot of it, and I'll put that up again. Don't do drugs. Stay out of school. And home education is the term that's used again and again in the book to make that distinction, which is very important. It's a distinction that we really, really focus on because people just can't seem to pull those two words apart, but that's very important.
Yeah, I don't use the word homeschooling to describe what we do as a family. I don't use the word unschooling, and I don't use the word professionally either in the work that I do. I always use the word home education or family-based learning or something of the sort. I try to mix it up a little bit because the point is that I think as soon as we name it and call it a thing, which we've already done. I mean, homeschooling has already been a word for a very long time, but I personally try to steer away from that because by making it a thing, then we validate the system as the standard.
Okay, this is School Sucks Live. We are on our way with Laurette Lynn and Osborne, and we will be back in a minute. Give us a call, 843-JOIN-SSP.
you want to move to the free state.
All right, Laurette, when we clear the breaks, we are still streaming on UStream, but we're off the radio. So, like, we disconnect from the radio, and people who are watching us live can still see us and hear us. Okay. So we try to entertain them during the breaks.
Are we playing Fact or Crap?
Do you want to play a game called Fact or Crap? Where is Fact or Crap? I don't see it.
I see it on top of the refrigerator.
Could you grab it? Actually, no, wait, hold on, I'll grab it. This is the best This is the best activity we've come up with so far. So yeah, I think we both saw your recent show with Steph. I thought it was really good.
Thanks. Yeah, I like working with Steph. Steph's really cool.
Yeah. Then I haven't done a show. We should have him on next week. You want to try for that?
Last time we had him on, all he did was make fun of me the entire time.
No, I thought he would. What did he make? How did he make fun of you?
I don't even remember.
He doesn't do that. Stefan is awesome. He doesn't make fun of people.
If he feels comfortable,
smart.
if he feels comfortable with somebody, I think he'll. Osborne did some video work for him a while back. Actually, some of his most popular videos.
2 of the 3 most popular videos I did. Yeah.
Yep. So.
Or he needs to give you more credit then.
No, not really. No. It really wasn't me either. It was my friend.
Hey, incidentally, Brett.
Yeah.
Going to say circa 1994, maybe.
Yeah.
I have a very, very good friend named Freedom.
Really?
And that was, long before this whole trend started. His name is Freedom. So I don't know if he's uncomfortable with that nowadays, considering the term's been hijacked by a lot of different groups. But so wouldn't it be cool if you already had that name?
I think I'm going to go with Sweet Honey Mustard Brown. I think that's good.
Good guy on radio. That's what I'm changing myself to. Chick on radio.
So when are you going to start the new show?
January. And no, I'm just kidding. It's not going to be called Chick on Radio. We thought about that, though. We thought about 2 chicks on the radio. And I said, no, it sounds like a porn show. So we're not going to do that. But it starts in January.
Cool. When this guy talks with this voice, it usually means we're coming back. But
wait, there's more. Our chat room is built into the cam page, so you can interact with other listeners.
So if I suddenly go, wait, we're coming back, and I'll mute everything and then start it again.
Got it.
That's cam.lrn.fm.
Since time began,
and sometimes he fakes us out, but he's always the voice you hear before we're coming back from a break. So Fact or Crap, let me show you on the cam where you can see me. Is a calendar, but it's based on a game where you have to, they say something that sounds outrageous, but it might be true. And sometimes things that sound true, but might be outrageously crap. So
let's do it.
Let's see. Maybe we have time for one. And people in the chat, let me open the chat. Whoa, look at this. All this chat.
Wow.
People say, I'm excited to see Laurette. I'm excited to hear Laurette.
Thank you.
She was wonderful on Stefan's show last week. Thanks, everyone. Hi in the chat.
Hi, chatters. Autographed books for everybody.
All right, we're coming back. We'll do it. We'll do it next break.
Got it.
Updates.lrn.fm.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to School Sucks Live. This is Brett. In the studio with me tonight, we have Osborne. And on the phone, Laurette Lynn. Thanks for being here, Laurette. And you're on mute. Now you are audible. And your new book, Don't Do Drugs, Stay Out of School. Can you tell us a little bit about what made you, pushed you to write this book?
Yeah, actually, I was doing a show for Unplugged-Mom Radio, and this was way back when the show first started, in the very early stages of the show. And I got on a rant, and Desiree, my producer, was on with me. And I think we just finished up with a guest. We were just talking a little bit, and I went on, and it just came out. I just blurted out the phrase. I said, you know what, folks, here's my advice. Here's my advice to you. What you need to do is just stay out of school. Just stay away from school. And I stopped and I said, as a matter of fact, don't do drugs, stay out of school, because I was thinking of the cliche, don't do drugs, stay in school. And Desiree started laughing. I got so much feedback from that, like almost immediate feedback. People were loving it. They thought it was hilarious and funny. And then a few shows later, someone repeated it back to me, and we started laughing again. And it just became a thing all by itself. So I had written a couple of articles, and it was actually Desiree that said, you know what, you should write a book. And I said, yeah, whatever. What would I call it? And she said, don't do drugs, stay out of school. And I thought it was so goofy at first. I said, nah, that's silly. But it stayed on my mind for a while. And what I decided to do at some point was take a few of my articles and put them together. But the first idea was just kind of to create this kind of long article and sell it out online and put it out online and, print it in different magazines and such. But as I was putting it together, it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the outline was getting bigger. And before you know it, I had the outline for a reasonably sized book. And I just went ahead with that. It took a while because I have a household to run at the same time, but it got done. And I meant it to be just a very simple, easy to read, prolific message, like one parent talking to another parent and saying, look, I don't think we should use school anymore. Here's why. Here's what the problem is. Here's what the potential harm can be to your children. Here's what I found out. Here's what you should go and look for yourself. And here are some possible solutions for you. And I think that I've been able to accomplish that with this book.
And you've tested this yourself, because there was a time, I know from our conversations before, where you had your children were young and you went to interview the school teacher, or was it preschool, elementary school? I'm not sure.
Elementary school, several schools, actually, I interviewed.
Yeah. And Osborne, you've got two young kids yourself that are probably not going to wind up in these public schools.
Absolutely not.
Right.
I would hope not.
So, and you've already, one is 2, one is 5, right?
Yeah,
or almost
right.
6. And
they started educating themselves as soon as they popped out of the hole.
Exactly. Yeah. So, back to the book. The book is compact. I know it expanded beyond what could be an article. It's user-friendly. It's to the point. It's set up in a way where about the first half of the book makes the case against compulsory schooling and what use, I think, socio-philosophical was the term you used, consequences.
Yeah.
And then the second half of the book is pretty much focused on solutions, which is what we hope to deal with more on this show in the future. I certainly made a very thorough case through, over 100 episodes on why people shouldn't be sending their children to these schools. But, in that part where you're making the case against school, you mentioned Gatto, you mentioned the Prussian system, you mentioned the industrialists, like the Rockefeller Education Board and all that. When you were doing this research, and maybe this was stuff you knew before, did you find anything that was particularly shocking or upsetting about the origins of our school system in this country?
It was all shocking when I first found it out, because remember, Brett, when I decided to home educate my kids, it wasn't because I thought anything was basically wrong with the whole system in general. I think on some level I always sensed that because I rebelled against school when I was a kid naturally, but I think a lot of kids do. Now hindsight teaches me that the reason kids rebel naturally is because it's this instinctual rebellion against being suppressed. But at the time I thought I was just a rebellious kid. My decision was primarily based on the fact that the New York City public schools, which is where I lived at the time, were simply not going to work for my family. I felt that after going and interviewing several of the schools, my first clue was just the fact that I was interviewing them was a problem. It was so shocking that I would sit down and ask all these questions. And I said, why is this uncommon? Why is this a problem? So that was the first red flag. But my decision was primarily based on that very narrow kind of reasoning. Well, it's the New York City schools and they're overcrowded. You know, the main thing that you would hear on mainstream. And they're not doing very well. Statistically, they're low. I want something better for my kids. So you want something done right, you do it yourself. Yeah. I decided that I was going to do it myself. When I started reading about home education, and the first books I started with were just logistically how to put it together. Linda Dobson, you know, provides great material for that. Like if you're new to home educating, what do I do? How do I do this? Linda Dobson. She kind of, in her books, she very softly introduces the idea that there is something terribly wrong with the school system and that education does not actually happen in school. But she introduces it much more softly than, say, Gatto. Once I got through that, I continued to read because learning is an ongoing process, of course, and I became more and more interested. Then my political views started to change. A lot of things in the world started to change. I started to find out more about just the economy, life in general, politics. Then the doors started opening up even more as far as education. I started to read Gatto. Once I started to read Gatto, and then I was reading Charlotte Iserby, and I'm sure you've read Charlotte Iserby, The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. These things, I mean, they were all shocking. I don't know that I could pick one in particular, but in general, it was a hard pill to swallow to realize that it's on purpose. Not only is it happening, but it's not inadvertent. It's on purpose. There was a very purposeful agenda to program and condition large quantities of people and mold them for specific tasks in life. Like we heard from President Wilson, which I mentioned in my book. He made it very clear in a very well-documented, easy-to-verify speech where they literally want to train people to fit into certain areas of society. That's shocking in and of itself. Then you have the ways in which they do it. And it's not only through the conditioning of the information that they're giving or a lack of information, because you remember they are giving children information, but it's controlled, contrived information. It's a different version of history. And you were a history teacher, Brett, so you know that the version of history that the textbooks want to give young people and the version of history that actually happened are typically two different versions. Sure. And that's a problem. Yeah. Economics and all this information being controlled and contrived, it gives paints a very particular picture, but it's also done through medications. And, you know, from my conversations with Lori Couture, I don't know if you've spoken to her yet, but, you know, a lot of these made up diseases and in some cases, the children actually do have these conditions and these problems, but maybe 10% of the time they actually do. 90% of the time they don't. And there's the medication, the education, a lot of different means that, you know, we can get a little bit more into, but the whole thing is shocking, really.
Sure. When we get back, let's pick it up right there with the health risks of government school. This is School Sucks Live. We will be right back.
Take control of your money today and do it with style. Young Austrians are right now.
Okay, and we're clear.
Would you like to take part?
All right, then. Don't forget also there's a 10% discount if you want to mention that.
Oh, yeah. I'll definitely mention that. We'll probably start hour 2 talking about that again. So we did goals behind the book.
If you want to bring up the, I have a short but pretty thorough chapter on feminism and the agenda. What you're fed in school about feminism and the fact that women are especially taught constantly that we have to compete with men. Mm-hmm. I think that was a big deal. I think that has really ruined family life in America, probably globally.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear about that. So I'm gonna put it down and we'll flow into that. But we're through 2 segments and we've got 8, so we can probably even devote a whole segment to that.
Yeah. However you want to do it, I'll follow your lead, dude. Let's play the game.
Okay. You want to do one?
Sure.
You can use them anywhere in the world.
Random.
I
randomly pick one that we already
done. We probably did like 20 of them.
All right. Fact or crap? Beverly Cleary once wrote books about the characters in Leave It to Beaver.
Liberty just as seriously as I do.
Fact.
I would say fact. I mean, I'm really at a loss here, but I would say fact.
All right.
What do you say? Wait, hold
What
on.
do the
Chat
people say?
Chat, what do the chat people say?
Chat people aren't contributing.
Crap.
Crap. We got one crap.
Immigrating to the Shire was easy. I was instantly
Okay, let's
All right. It is indeed fact. During the early 1960s, children's author Beverly Cleary wrote a series of books based on the popular TV series, including Beaver and Wally and Here's Beaver. Beverly Bunn was born in McMinnville, Oregon. Moved to Portland, Oregon when she was 6. She was encouraged to write books by a local librarian and went on to become a librarian herself. Some of her best-known literary characters include Henry Huggins, Beezus, Ramona Quimby, Ralph S. Mouse, and Maggie Schultz.
Interesting.
I've read all of them. That's how I know. I remember those. I read those when I was a kid.
All right, here's a quick one for you. Fact or crap? Jimmy Buffett's only alcohol-related song is Margaritaville.
That sounds so unbelievable that if I know how this game works... Yeah, it's the only song like that the subject is alcohol, because alcohol is definitely mentioned in other songs. Has to be.
It sure seems like that's his entire point of singing is about alcohol.
Well, that's certainly what his fans think. I'm gonna say fact on that.
I don't know. I actually don't know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's George Thorogood.
It's clearly crap. Although his best-known song is Margaritaville, Jimmy Buffett has written several drinking-related songs, including Boat Drinks, Why Don't We Get Drunk? But he's also written food-related songs, such as Cheeseburger in Paradise.
I hate that
and
song.
Grapefruit Juicy Fruits.
I don't like either of those songs. Jimmy Buffett, what was that song that's really not... Come Monday? Come Monday? That's a nice song. I would play it, but then when I post... because I can't play the actual version of it, because then YouTube will flag this video for copyright violation. Come Monday.
You can sing it.
Lyrics.
Sing it for us.
I don't know the song.
Should I sing it as Sweet Honey Mustard Brown?
You could. Or as Al Pacino.
This is us. Hey everybody, this is Brett. Welcome back to School Sucks Live. In the studio with me tonight is Osborne, and out in Oklahoma is Laurette Lynn. And we're talking about her book, Don't Do Drugs, Stay Out of School. And right before we went to the break, we were talking about, these drugs that they put these kids on, as the title suggests. And, you said, Osborne, that you had a brother who had landed himself in trouble back in the day, right? Was that part of the...
Yeah, which one?
The one we were talking about a couple years ago.
Oh, yes.
Who you said is doing very well now.
He is.
Did that course of action ever get suggested for him? Or
the drugs? I think he was on the drugs when he was little.
Yeah.
Now, his younger brother, on the other hand, he's been on the drugs for a long time, and it's not good.
It's not going well. Yeah, it usually doesn't, because there are adverse consequences of that. And it seems like such an easy solution, which really doesn't require any actually looking at the institution or the actions of adults. It seems like when adults try to solve problems with young people, the solution can be anything, Laurette, that doesn't require any self-examination whatsoever, whether we're talking about schooling or parenting in many cases.
This is an epidemic in today's society, and I'd like to be able to really draw a clear path and maybe come up with some kind of theory and write a thesis on it someday, because it is something that is a topic that I find fascinating. I'm very passionate and interested in, but it does seem to be the nemesis of our modern culture today is we want an easy fix, we want an easy out, and we always want to blame something else. It's never our fault. It's never something that we're doing. And if you suggest that to a parent, if you say, well, maybe the child's acting out behavior has something to do with the parenting, maybe it has something to do with the fact that both the mother and father are working 3 different jobs and they're never present and the kid is being raised by the school system. If you suggest suggest that, oh, no, it couldn't possibly be that. And, they'll react sometimes with violent opposition and violent aggression toward you for just suggesting that it might be something that they're doing. And that's very sad, because I'm really not making any kind of profound suggestion that there's anything wrong necessarily with the parent, but just self-examination. We seem as a culture to have this real horrible inability to look in the mirror and really examine ourselves and take true responsibility. Now, I'd like to say that it's because that is what our conditioned and our programming has done to us. But I'd like to find out specifically what about the programming has done that to us and made us so infantile and unable to take responsibility. But one of the things that we do as a culture, and I use the pronoun we loosely because I'm just trying to generalize here to not point specific fingers, but I think we know who we're talking about. Kids are acting out in school. There's 40 kids in the classroom. Teacher can't control them. The easy way is to put them on some kind of medication in order to get them on the medication, which will keep them docile and easier for the teacher to control. In order to get them, we have to tell the parents that there is something wrong with the child. So we make up these conditions and we make up these diseases and we make up these disorders. And like I said, there might be, maybe I'm going to be very generous by saying 10%, but I think it's actually far less than that. Maybe 1% of the time, okay, the child actually does have some kind of legitimate issue that is a physical issue. 99% of the time, there really is no legitimate physical issue there. It's just simply a matter of we need the child to be more docile. But the teachers have convinced themselves that these conditions exist. A lot of the facilitators have convinced themselves, because that's the only way to deal with your conscience, is to convince yourself that this is legitimate. Because somewhere deep inside, the parents, everybody knows that putting a child on a psychotropic medication is dangerous and harmful. But in order to convince themselves that they're doing the right thing so they could just send their child into school and go back to work, they say, well, my child has a condition. That's why they have to be on the drug. Because God forbid they have to look at themselves and examine themselves. And that is a symptom of the same programming that they were brought up in. So all these children now are growing up, Brett. We have a wave of children growing up completely dependent on medication for depression, for oppositional defiance disorder. When I was a kid, oppositional defiance disorder didn't exist. It was called being a kid, okay? There's a whole world of trouble there. We have this wave of kids that are getting out of high school and entering into the world that they really aren't prepared for, completely dependent on drugs and medication. And the whole thing just perpetuates itself. And, in walks more health problems and more dependency on more drugs and medication and more health problems after that. And then inputting offspring into a whole new generation that's going to do this exact same thing. We're creating a very unhealthy, very dangerous cycle here. And it's just another problem that's happening. And that is more what my title means. It doesn't mean don't use marijuana. It means stay away from the psychotropic drugs that are harming your children in school. And these are the ways that school is physically harmful, mentally harmful, spiritually harmful.
Yeah, and one of the saddest things that I remember hearing, I was at a conference for gifted, which is another label that I'm not really in love with today, but for gifted students. And they were showing us, like, here would be a list of attributes that a gifted student would possess. It was exactly the same list that shows up in the DSM-4 for ADHD. So you have kids who might be talented or even have these learning styles that don't fit the mold of the, the strict government school environment, that are doped up into compliance and, see those gifts or those talents, those things that make them unique, those things that make them individuals, as more of a liability, or something is wrong with me because I don't fit into this expectation that was created long ago without me in mind at all. And I think that while we're talking about the health risks of this whole schooling process, there's also a bright side to this if we start talking about home education.